$18 trillion in debt, massive deficits, more government bureaucracy than you can shake a stick at, and no matter who we elect, everything just keeps moving in that direction. It's hard not to feel, especially after yesterday, it's hard not to feel like we're on some sort of unstoppable path. Not so fast, though, says former Oklahoma Senator Tom Coburn. According to him and some very intelligent and influential allies like Sarah Palin and the great one, Mark Levin, there are opportunities within our founding documents to put a fix to all of this. Here to talk about what is called the Convention of States is Tom Coburn, joining us from D.C. Senator Coburn, thank you so much for coming on. Tell me about this Convention of the States, because I am always very, and admittedly, I am very terrified at redoing anything as related to our Constitution with the current people that we have in office.
Well, I think that's what's so unique in the vision of our founders made it to where we can cheat history as a republic that other republics didn't have the option to do. And that's where Article 5 of the Constitution comes in. What you should fear, Dana, is continuing down the path that we're continuing today with dishonest numbers coming from Washington. You mentioned $18 trillion. You know, the unfunded liabilities right now are in excess of $148 trillion. So that's the unfunded liabilities that we don't have any way to pay for that have already been promised, plus the $18 trillion in debt. So a lot of people have talked about fear, but remember, a convention of the states is not a constitutional convention. It's a very specific direction to a convention of the states to address specific issues, mainly limiting the power and scope, regulatory and otherwise, of the federal government over the states. And if you'll recall, the states created the federal government. The federal government didn't create the states. And we have gone, if you start with Roosevelt and then you exaggerate with Johnson, we've ignored the founders' intent with the General Welfare Clause. Yes. We've ignored the Commerce Clause specifically to empower the federal government. And today we find ourselves like, I was in Texas recently, and 50% of their budget is education. But 50% of that money is controlled by the federal government with mandates that does not give the legislature in Texas the ability and freedom to make choices about their money that went to Washington now comes back. Yeah. And the contrast to that is when Thomas Jefferson was asked when he was founding the University of Virginia about having the federal government help him because he was struggling getting the money to put it together. He said, "You don't understand, my young man, it's for the federal government to be involved at all in education, you would have to have a constitutional amendment." So here's one of the writers of our founding documents stating publicly that the federal government has no role in education, yet what has happened since 1976? We've spent $3.8 trillion in education, and every parameter that you can measure is worse, not better.